I don't care if this is retro, I'm doing a video on it. People do not seem to like this game as much as I do for some reason. I don't know why. So let me tell you why this is one of the best JRPGs out there and also why this is the best Final Fantasy game. Starting with the story. I don't want to spoil too much of the story since this is a Final Fantasy game and the story will probably be half the reason you want to play this game in the first place. But I can't avoid giving some minor spoilers. The game's story follows Titus, or Titus? Look, nobody knows. A guy from Xanakind. He lives a pretty happy life, well, except for not having a father, I guess. One night when he's playing Blitzball, which is a really weird combination of a number of sports played in a huge ball of floating water. Yeah, I don't know either. His city gets attacked by something called Sin. When he wakes up, he has no idea where he is, and after talking to some people, he learns that Xanakind was destroyed 1,000 years ago. This screams time travel bullshit, and although I won't go into why, I can assure you there's no time travel bullshit going on here. In your adventure to find your way back home to Xanakind, you end up joining the young summoner Yuna and a group of guardians. In this world, summoners are a part of the Church of Yevon, and they have to go on a pilgrimage to obtain Aeons, powerful spirits which can be summoned to fight for you. This pilgrimage ends in Xanakind, where the summoner will obtain the final Aeon and defeat Sin. Hearing this, you want to go there. Xanakind is the city you came from, and that might just be your way home. Without getting into too much detail, it turns out the church wasn't what it seemed to be. Of course we can't accept that, and now we still go on with our pilgrimage. I honestly don't see the point in that, but hey, we may have found a way to outsmart the church, right? Right? Maybe it's because I'm generally not a fan of huge organized religion. Don't get me wrong, if you're religious, great for you, but it's just not my kind of thing. But I really like how this game outright says that putting your blind faith into something like a church could be a really, really bad idea. Creating a world so different from our own, and yet this game still manages to critique our own society and way of life. That's a true art form if you ask me. That all being said, the writing is well... I mean, it's not bad. But then again, I wouldn't go as far as saying it resembles anything close to being good either. It's just kinda... there. Which is made worse because it's contrasted by the amazing story itself. It's just told rather... well, not so good. That wouldn't be so bad if the voice acting were good, but the voice acting is pretty awful too. And I don't mean the infamous laughing scene. No, that one actually is executed very well and makes a lot of sense. No, I mean the fact that the English dialogue just doesn't fit the Japanese lip sync animations, which results in lines being sped up or sometimes being slowed down when needed. Either that or the delivery is just really awkward. That would be understandable if it meant the voices actually ended up being lip synced, but they're just not. This all takes away from what is an amazing narrative at heart, it's just not executed very well at all. That being said though, the game looks and sounds amazing. The footage you're seeing right now is of course from the HD remaster on PC, so it's not really fair to compare it to a normal PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 game. As a matter of fact, Kingdom Hearts HD remasters looks better than this game generally. But this game throws in pre-rendered cutscenes every now and then, and they looked amazing on the PlayStation 2, but now in full HD quality, those cutscenes are face-melting levels of gorgeous. Add that to the whole soundtrack of this game, which was remade with a real orchestra rather than some digital studio work, and you've got a beautiful game on your hands. Talking about the music actually, of course you want to probably play with the orchestral version, but if you really want to play with the original PS2 version music, for whatever nostalgic bullshit reasons, you totally can. All of those things come together in one beautifully crafted world. There's so many places you can explore, all of them beautiful in their own way, of course some more than others. I mean, there's only so much you can do with the desert, but the game manages to combine soundtrack, visual and world designs in a way you rarely ever see. You can't really see them separate from each other, they blend together to create this world called Spira. But we shouldn't forget the fact that this is a game, not a film. So the most important part of the game is of course still the gameplay, so how does that hold up? And you know the answer to this. The game's story is rather linear, and I must admit that kinda sucks some of the time, but then the world opens up at the very end of the game and the real fun starts. The story of the game and everything that comes with it is a good game on its own, but there's also a bunch of extra content to go through. For instance, there's 3 extra summons in the game which you're not required to get at all, but all of them require you to put in some effort to get them, but they are the most powerful summons in the game. Then there's the monster arena, where you get told to capture monsters you find in the wild and return them for prizes. Some of those prizes actually include items that are required to get celestial weapons, or as you may know them, the ultimate weapons for all the characters. These weapons will be needed if you want to fight most of the optional bosses, because without them, your damage limit is 9,999. But after equipping these, you can suddenly deal up to 99,999 damage, which is really useful when bosses have upwards of 1,000,000 HP. This is because these weapons hold an ability that allows you to break the damage limit. You see, abilities are not something your characters have or get by level up. They are something that are on the weapons. Passive abilities, that is. Things like magic are still gained through level up, but in a slightly different way than you might imagine. You see, when you level up in the game, you don't actually raise your stats at all. Instead, you get a sphere level, which you can use on the sphere grids. A massive system containing all the stat increases and all the power-ups for all the characters. Every character starts somewhere on the grids and has a pretty linear path set out for them. But if you want, you can take matters into your own hands and shape the character way differently from how the game intended you to do it. It's entirely possible to have your white mage, Yuna, gain a lot of strength and increase her to become a heavy hitter, or Waka, your ranged attacker, become a white mage. Of course, you probably won't ever really do that, at least not until the post-game when you start maxing everyone out and pretty much making them equal. So I think it's about time to start talking about the battle system in this game, because this is without any doubt in my mind the best Final Fantasy battle system out there. You see, your standard Final Fantasy battle system will usually consist of timers filling up, and then when they're filled up you can attack, and when you use a stronger attack it'll take a longer time to recharge. So what if we take that idea and translate it into a turn-based system? Well, it turns out that works really well. In this game you can see what order your characters and your enemies will have turns, and depending on the actions you take, your turn might move backwards or forwards, or just stay as it is. This is all based on abilities and stats and then influenced by the moves you pick. This simply means that this is the most strategic Final Fantasy game. I mean, not counting Final Fantasy Tactics, I suppose. But again, this gives such a deep layer of strategy of thinking about what your options are. I can only be positive about it. The fact that you're not on a timer in some kind of pseudo-real-time battle system like most other Final Fantasy games means that you also have time to think about what you're going to do, rather than just doing something because otherwise you'll get murdered in no time. Hovering over a move with your cursor will show you the impact it has on your turns, and based on that, you may choose to go for something else. To sum it all up, this game is amazing. If you haven't played it, go get the HD remaster on Steam. If you get that, it also includes Final Fantasy X too. But, well, I guess it's free stuff, right? In just a main story playthrough, I did spend about 26 hours of game time. And I did some extras, so my save file ended up being 33 hours as of me recording this. But I know for a fact that if you want to go all out and dive into the optional content of this game will be worth roughly 150 to maybe even 200 hours. So, it's worth getting.